The air was tense in the upscale bank, every customer oblivious to the storm about to erupt. A young black woman approached the counter, holding a check that represented years of her hard work, her dreams, her future. The bank manager barely looked at her before tearing the check in half, a dismissive sneer on his face. "We don't handle this here," he muttered. But what he didn't know would shatter his assumptions completely. This wasn't just any client. She owned the entire bank. In that single, humiliating moment, the scales of power were about to tilt in the most unexpected way. From a young age, Maya had always understood the value of determination. Growing up in a modest neighborhood, she watched her parents work tirelessly, instilling in her the belief that hard work and integrity could open any door. By her mid-30s, Maya had defied every expectation, building a thriving business empire from scratch. Her latest achievement, owning a prestigious downtown bank, was both a personal milestone and a symbol of the barriers she had shattered along the way. Despite her success, Maya remained humble, walking the streets she once played in as a child, remembering every struggle, every doubt cast upon her because of the color of her skin. On this particular day, she decided to visit one of her bank's branches, not as the owner everyone assumed she was, but anonymously, to observe the daily workings and ensure her institution maintained the highest standards of service and fairness. The branch was polished and modern, gleaming under the morning sun streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Employees moved efficiently behind counters, and the air smelled faintly of coffee and freshly printed receipts. Customers chatted quietly, oblivious to the presence of the bank's real owner walking among them. Maya held a check in her hand, a routine transaction on the surface, yet she couldn't shake a sense of tension. Little did she know, the very person tasked with serving her, the branch manager, had a history of dismissing certain clients, making assumptions based on appearances rather than merit. This visit, intended as a simple oversight, was about to become a confrontation that would test every ounce of patience and courage she had cultivated over the years. The calm hum of the bank was about to explode into chaos, and Maya's true power and identity would soon turn the tables in ways no one could predict. Maya approached the counter, keeping her demeanor calm, professional, and unassuming. She handed the check to the branch manager, who barely glanced at it. His eyes flicked over her quickly and a faint smirk appeared. Without a word, he grabbed the check and in one swift motion, tore it in half. Shock froze Maya in place for a moment. Customers around them exchanged glances, some shifting uncomfortably. She felt a wave of disbelief and anger. How could someone act so recklessly, so disrespectfully? But even more troubling was the underlying assumption behind his action. The belief that she didn't belong, that she was less than the people he usually served. Every ounce of professionalism and dignity she had cultivated seemed invisible in his eyes. Maya could have revealed her identity immediately, shown him who she was. But she paused. She decided to let the moment linger, letting the weight of his ignorance settle. The manager leaned back in his chair, confident, smug, utterly unaware that he was about to face consequences far beyond what he could imagine. She observed the reactions of the other staff and customers. Some were visibly uncomfortable. A few even whispered to each other, questioning the manager's actions. Yet none dared to intervene. It was a stark reminder of how easily prejudice can go unchallenged when people are afraid to speak up. Maya's silence was deliberate. She wanted to show him the full measure of his arrogance. As the minutes ticked by, Maya began a quiet, calculated plan. She mentally reviewed her options. A simple confrontation might shock him, but she needed the moment to teach a lasting lesson. Not just for him, but for anyone who might ever underestimate her or others like her. Every interaction, every gesture of disrespect, every assumption made about her because of the color of her skin had led to this instant of reckoning. The manager, still unaware, continued his routine, dismissive, thinking this was just another routine transaction. But Maya's presence in that branch, her composed yet powerful posture, hinted at the storm brewing beneath the surface. The energy in the room shifted imperceptibly at first, then more noticeably as she began to assert her quiet authority. By now, tension had mounted to an almost unbearable level. Maya's calculated restraint clashed with the manager's ignorance, creating a palpable friction. The audience watching or listening can almost feel the silent heartbeat of the room, waiting for the moment when the tables would turn and justice, long overdue, would finally make its appearance. The tension in the branch reached a boiling point as Maya finally placed the torn check back on the counter. Her gaze locked onto the manager, calm yet commanding, radiating a quiet authority that made him uneasy. The room seemed to shrink, the murmurs of other customers fading into silence. Then, with a measured calm, Maya revealed her identity. She removed her jacket, revealing the subtle insignia of the bank's ownership, a symbol that instantly transformed her from just another client to the woman who controlled every corner of the institution. The manager's eyes widened in disbelief, his confident smirk replaced by panic. Every assumption he had made, every moment of dismissiveness, now confronted him like a mirror reflecting his own prejudice. Maya didn't yell. She didn't need to. Her presence, her unshakable composure spoke volumes. She detailed her investments, her dedication, and the very fact that she had built the bank from the ground up. Every word was precise, deliberate, and powerful, cutting through the manager's ignorance with surgical precision. The staff and customers watched, stunned, as the reality sank in. This was the woman he had humiliated, the very person whose decisions now affected his career. In a heartbeat, the room's energy shifted. The manager, flustered and humbled, tried to grasp for control, but the power balance had irrevocably changed. Maya outlined the consequences of his actions, not as punishment but as a statement. Prejudice, arrogance, and disrespect would not go unchallenged under her leadership. Every shred of superiority he had assumed evaporated in the face of undeniable truth. The climax wasn't just about her authority being recognized, it was about justice delivered with poise, a lesson carved into the conscience of everyone present. In those few moments, the invisible lines of power, bias, and respect were redrawn. Maya had turned a humiliating encounter into a moment of reckoning, forcing everyone to confront their assumptions and recognize that appearances could be deceiving. By the time she left the counter, the manager's face was a mask of shock and reflection. The room, once tense with unspoken prejudice, now pulsed with a quiet reverence. Maya had not only reclaimed her dignity but had delivered a lesson in respect and awareness that would linger far longer than the brief encounter itself. As Maya stepped out of the branch, the weight of what had just occurred lingered in the air like an electric charge. The customers and staff, once passive observers, now carried a newfound awareness of assumptions and prejudice that they could no longer ignore. The bank manager, humbled and introspective, would forever remember the day his arrogance collided with truth, and the lesson would shape his behavior from that moment forward. Maya's actions were deliberate, not out of vengeance but to illuminate a deeper reality. The world often judges people by appearances, by the color of their skin, or by assumptions about wealth and status. Too many talented, hard-working individuals are dismissed, undervalued, or humiliated simply because others fail to look beyond surface impressions. In that small branch, a single act of bias had met a powerful corrective, proving that respect and dignity cannot be overridden by ignorance or prejudice. But the impact extended far beyond the walls of the bank. Word of the incident traveled quickly, sparking conversations across communities about fairness, equality, and the subtle ways discrimination persists even in modern institutions. Maya had transformed a moment of personal affront into a lesson with wide-reaching implications. Her story reminded everyone watching or listening that authority and respect are not just about titles. They are about integrity, awareness, and the courage to confront injustice when it appears. For Maya, the encounter reinforced a truth she had long known. Change often begins with one individual willing to assert their worth, to stand firm against disrespect, and to demand recognition not as a privilege but as a fundamental right. The branch manager's actions were a stark example of the casual, insidious ways prejudice manifests. but Maya's composed response showed the power of resilience, foresight, and calm authority in confronting such moments. As viewers reflect on Maya's journey, the question remains, how often do we let assumptions shape our judgments? And how can we ensure that every person, regardless of appearance or background, is met with the dignity they deserve? In the end, Maya's story is more than a personal victory. It is a call to recognize injustice, challenge bias, and honor the potential of every individual who walks through our doors.